Jesus in the streets. Jesus owned the darkness over every enemy. Jesus for my family, I speak the holy name, Jesus. Shout Jesus from the mountains, Jesus in the streets, Jesus in the darkness over every enemy. Jesus for my family, I speak the holy name, Jesus. And we shout Jesus from the mountains, Jesus in the streets, Jesus in the darkness over every enemy. Jesus for my family, I speak the holy name, Jesus. Your name is power, your name is healing, your name is life. Break every stronghold, shine through the shadows, burn like a fire. Your name is power, your name is healing, your name is life. Break every stronghold, shine through the shadows, burn like a fire. I just want to speak the name of Jesus over every heart and every mind. 'Cause I know there is peace within his presence. I speak Jesus.
You are worthy of it all. You are worthy of it all. For from you are all things, and to you are all things, and you deserve the glory. You are worthy of it all. deserve the glory.
All right, so the right celebration. You ready? Luke chapter 2. So this is the part 3 of the right celebration, and if there were to be a title, it would be Celebrate Christ's Arrival. Celebrate Christ's arrival. Obviously, Christmas season, we know Jesus is the reason for this season. We know, although the lights are pretty, the tree is pretty, the presents, there's only one ultimate present. Every year we have a manger scene in the house, and if you go to our manger scene in our house, there's no baby Jesus. We hide the baby Jesus. Now, we have one of those countdowns that we use that for the baby Jesus to count it down. But on Christmas Eve, we'll take baby Jesus and hide him somewhere in the house because the kids have to find the baby, right? And once you find the baby, you get to put it back in the manger. And the whole purpose is what? The first ever presence is Jesus. So if you don't start with that, what's the point, right? That wasn't even my notes. I just assumed you couldn't find Luke 2, and I'm just ad-libbing at this point. All right, so Luke chapter 2. I'm glad you're sitting because I'm going to mention something you're going to probably freak out on. I'm reading from the New King James Version. I know. I felt like I was sinning. There's certain verses that just, I don't know, they sound better in the King James or the New King James. Does that make sense? I'm not saying it is better. I like the New Living Translation, but there's something about this verbiage, the way Luke wrote it in the New King James Version, the way they wrote it, I like the way it sounds. Okay, so you ready? Luke chapter 2, and I'm reading from verse 1 to 7, New King James Version. It's hard for me to say that. It's a great translation. I use it all the time. I just don't use it usually when I preach. All right, Luke chapter 2, verse number 1. You ready? And it came to pass in those days that a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be registered. The census first took place. Now, you guys know why they're registering, right? We all know this. The Caesar wants to know, am I getting my money? Right? I need to make sure. I know I'm getting $1,000 from this town. Am I supposed to be getting $5,000? That's what he wants to know. How many people are here now? All right, so this census first took place while Quirinius was governor of Syria. So all went to be registered, everyone to his own home city. Joseph also went up from Galilee, out of the city of Nazareth, into Judea, to the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, not to be confused with Jerusalem, which is also called the city of David. But folk know Bethlehem as the city of David. Because he was of the house of the lineage of David. Now, let me pause there for a moment. So, I don't know if you ever looked at a map of this area. Do you see where it says, in verse number 4, it says, Joseph also went up from Galilee. See, that's interesting. Show that first map if you would. The first map, if you could see it, in the very center, you'll see Galilee. It's like the orange, the top left area. It's Galilee, and right in Galilee is the city of Nazareth. Does that make sense? Galilee, if you go straight south in Judea, where the other tan part is Judea, and that is Bethlehem, right underneath Jerusalem. But the Bible says he went what? Up to Bethlehem. He's already up. Does that make sense to you? Does that bother you at all? Let me explain why. All right, so Galilee, the southern part, Galilee is actually 1,600 feet above sea level. Galilee is. Bethlehem is over 2,500 feet. So they're not talking a north-south stuff. They're talking about elevation. Look, when you're traveling by foot, elevation's more important than distance. Does that make sense? If that doesn't make sense to you, climb Pikes Peak in Colorado, 14,110 feet of it. On the map, it shows I only have 100 feet to go. No, you don't. You got 3 miles because it's 100 feet this way, but this way is not 100 feet. Does that make sense? So they're going up, even though they're going south, they're going up elevation-wise to Bethlehem. Cool? You feel better? All right, that's the end of the service. That's why I wanted to get it across to you today. No. Also, I don't know if you've ever seen this. Galilee, Judea, in that verse, these are not cities. They're territories. Okay? So when you look at this map, now go ahead and show the next one so you can see the Nazareth, and you see the circles? So these are the distance they're going to, okay? So this is about an 80-mile trip with a pregnant woman on foot. On average, it would take between 4 and 5 days. Most likely, it probably took a little bit longer. But it should take about 4 or 5 day trip. It's about 80-mile trip, okay? So this territory right here, from Nazareth to Bethlehem, this is territory. So Galilee is actually a territory. It would be like this. You're from Fort Myers, or you're from Lehigh, also Lee County. Does that make sense? That's all they're saying. This is Galilee County. This is Judea County. Jerusalem and Bethlehem are in Judea. Does that make sense? Judea is a territory. Cool? All right. I feel better. I don't know if you feel better, but to understand what's happening, this is what's happening. All right, verse number 5. So they went down to be registered with Mary, his betrothed, his fiancée, wife, who was with child. So it was that while they were there, the days were completed for her to be delivered. And she brought forth her firstborn son and wrapped him in a swaddling clothes and laid him in a manger because there was no room for them in the inn. We good? All right, so this is the right celebration, right? The right celebration. This is Christmas time. There's a celebration of Christ's arrival. This is all taking place. In today's world, we have what? We have parties. We have get-togethers. We have people arriving all the time at the house for get-togethers. You know what I'm talking about? I don't know if anybody gets stressed when I say there's going to be a party at your house tonight. The guys are probably like, sweet. The girls are like, oh my gosh, I got to clean the house. Right? There's something about that. We're having a celebration at the house. So what's next? We need to prepare to receive the host and to host these guests, right? We need to provide for our guests. What do we provide for? Food, right? We need food. We need snacks. We need drinks. We need fire for the bonfire. We need to have cornhole outs and wood out there for the fire. We need to have horseshoes ready to go. You with me? I don't know about you, but I'm ready for a party. Right? This is a get-together, celebration. It's the right celebration. So this right here, people are coming over. I need to prepare to receive them. All the planning party needs to get together. However, I have learned, since I've been married for 21 years now, I have learned that prepared to receive a party's guests is all about perspective. What I think is ready isn't what she thinks is ready. Okay? So how do I view the mess in the room, right? That's basically what it comes down to. What I call it, and I've seen it done as a skit, I don't know if you've ever seen this before, it's called mom goggles. Did you ever hear mom goggles? You ever hear that? Mom goggles can see things like nobody else can see it. Nobody else can explain it, but they see stuff that nobody else can see. It's called mom goggles. Let me explain it this way. I'm watching a TV. We're watching TV. You're 10, 11, 12 years old. You got your siblings in the room. You're watching TV. Mom comes in the room. What are you doing? Look at this pig pen. Clean it up. It's a mess. We're having a party today. Can't you understand that people are going to be here in an hour? You ever have that conversation? I've had that conversation many times. So she storms off, and she starts to go to her bedroom, into the master bath, and starts cleaning it. As if the guests walk into the room, bypass everybody else, goes into the master bedroom, goes into the bathroom, opens the shower curtain door, and be like, It's a nice bathroom. Nobody does that. But it's got to be cleaned. Mom goggles. What is she doing? She is acting like a tornado just tore up the house, isn't she? We're not ready to receive guests. She's acting like there's 3 inches of dust everywhere. There's things thrown around the house. So she leaves the room. I look around the living room, and I see one pillow that fell from the couch. I walk over there. I pick it up. I fluff it up. I put it back on the couch. Right about that moment, she walks out and is almost in tears of how good the living room looks. Oh, it looks so beautiful. Thank you so much. I'm so glad I didn't have to do this myself. And we're like, sure. Is it anybody else ringing? Okay. So this stuff right here, this is tough. It's all about perspective. Perspective. See, from the man's point of view, a man, a husband, a dad, when they play with their kids, I don't know if you've ever done it with your kids. Do you ever see a dad or take their kid and throw them up in the air? See, that's a man's perspective. Let me show you a man's perspective. Show this picture on the screen. This is a man's perspective. The father, the dad, grabs the kid and throws him in the air. And I love doing this. I used to love doing this with my kids. I used to train them for roller coasters. So I used to grab them. They would face out, and I'd grab them so they're sitting in my hands, you know what I'm talking about? And I'd kind of rock them. You ever do that? Did you ever do a 360? When they're lighter, I used to do this. I would take the kid and whoosh, go upside down with them and come back. This is roller coaster training. All right? So this is the dad's point of view. I'm throwing them this. I got this. I'm creating a memory here. That's not the kid's point of view. Let me show you the kid's point of view. This is what the kid sees. The kid's a little higher. He's pretty sure he's safe. When the dad throws the kid up in the air, what's the kid doing? Yay, yay! And then the stomach curls a little bit, coming down, right? So as the kid's coming down, the hairs, it's so far of a drop, the hair's already sticking straight up as they're coming down, and the kid's like, yeah! Right? It's scary. But dad seems like he's confident. Look, when it comes to perspective, there's the reality and there's goggles, right? I have one more point of view to look at. Let's show mom's point of view. This is what mom sees when she looks out the window. She sees her little baby thrown through the atmosphere, breaking the sound barrier as the child comes back down to earth. Right? This is mom's point of view. This is mom goggles. Do you understand what I'm saying? There is a different perspective when it comes to each situation. It's as clean. Mom says, no, it's not. Now it is. It's the same thing with playing. Does that make sense? I hope we're on the same page here. I want to look at this story in Luke chapter 2. Today we're talking about, it's all about celebrating Christ's arrival. Celebrating Christ's arrival. Christmas. I love this time of year. I love everything about it. There are two arrivals that I want to deal with. The first one you see on the screen, it's the arrival of the birth. Christ is coming in. We're receiving him. Finally, the Messiah is finally here. We see the star. We see everything in place. Everything's lining up. Oh, my goodness, it's Christmas. Right? So the first arrival here is about Christmas. It's about, think about Christmas. It's movies. It's Hallmark Channel. It's baking. It's cookies. It's pies. It's honey ham, lasagna, family, get-togethers. Last night, I was at my aunt's house in Punta Gorda. They were doing a boat parade light festival where boats would go through the Punta Gorda Isles, and all these boats were lit up with Christmas lights. One boat in particular, a good friend of my uncle and aunt's, took them 4 days to set up, over 9,000 lights. I mean, this is some serious stuff. Gift exchanges. These are Christmas, I don't know, seems like they're staples bedrocked into Christmas celebration, isn't it? Like there's probably more stuff in this list, but there's a lot of stuff going on here. I looked online of the most popular Christmas movies of all time. Most popular Christmas movies of all time. I put the dates here because some of these movies, I just can't believe it's been this long. Number 10 was this, 1954, The White Christmas, Bing Crosby, Danny Kaye, remember that one? That was a good one, that's a classic. Number 9, 1964, couldn't believe this one. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. 1964. Now we're talking about my generation. 1988. I can't believe it's been this long. 1988. Die Hard. Die Hard. I'm gonna reread what this said. This is the most popular Christmas movies. I'm just going to put a little caveat here. This is not my list. Don't yell at me that I put Die Hard. Okay? It's not my list. All right, so number 7. Number 7, 1966. How the Grinch Stole Christmas. 1947, this is a classic, right? Miracle on 34th Street. 1947, Natalie Wood, a little young Natalie Wood. Remember her? 2003, number 5. 2003, my favorite, The Elf. Elf, Will Ferrell, remember that one? I can't tell you how many times Pastor Kevin and I will be in the office and we'll talk to each other, but not really talking to each other. We're actually quoting from this movie all the time. It's a great one. So 2003 is The Elf. One of the only good movies that Will Ferrell did, actually. All right, so number 4, 1983, A Christmas Story. It's a tradition on Christmas Day. We're at my mom's house. It is playing nonstop. You'll shoot your eye out, kid. 1983. Number 3, 1989. This is a cult classic here. National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Jesus. Such a good movie. All right. Chevy Chase, such a classic movie. Number 2, 1946. It's a Wonderful Life, Jimmy Stewart. Oof. That's a good one right there, man. I love that one. How do you go through Christmas season without seeing that movie? Who has not seen that movie yet this year? Yeah, I didn't either. I need to watch it. And number 1, most popular Christmas movies of all time. Number 1, ready? Home Alone. What? Who came up with this list? Someone needs a raise. All right. These are great, man. I don't know what your favorite is. There's probably so many other movies that you would put that list in, or a movie in that list instead of a certain one. But what do they all have in common? I kind of put them all together. And what do they all have in common? They have a theme of love, of family, being thankful. Giving is better than receiving, helping others. The Christmas spirit. That's what these movies are all about. The other common theme, I don't know if you picked up on any of these movies, the other common theme is that Jesus isn't even a main character in any of the movies. How do you have Christmas without, Christ and all? I don't know. Hollywood, or any Hallmark movie or anything like that. Look, Jesus is like the reason for the season and all. Right? We're here to shout it, to proclaim it, to talk it, to walk it, to live it, to shout it. Everything we do, Jesus is the reason why we go to church. It's the reason why we worship. It's the reason why the lights. You think this is bright. Jesus is the shining star. Right? So we're here. The prophet Isaiah informs us that a child will be what? He'll be born. A son will be given. That's our memorization verse, Isaiah 9:6. For unto us a child is born. Unto us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulders. His name will be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. What a great verse. See, on Christmas, we celebrate Christ's arrival. Now, you don't have to turn there, but I'm going to give you a few verses here because it all says the same thing. 2 Samuel chapter 7, Matthew 1:1, Romans 1:3, Matthew 9:27, John 7. All of these have this basic mention, that Jesus is the Son of David. Now, there's many more verses, but I'm just letting you know this is a common theme, that Jesus is the Son of David. 2,000 years ago, there's a decree, a census that will be taking place, that all are to return to their ancestral towns. We've heard this story many times, right? The basic story that we know of, it goes something like this. Joseph and her very pregnant Mary come into Bethlehem, a place where David was born. They go to a local hotel, but there's no rooms left for them, right? And the innkeeper says, well, I have no room for you. Go over there or go over there. And they find what? They find a stable, a barn, a shed, whatever it might be. And Joseph, with a very pregnant Mary, barely shows up to the location and finally has the baby right when they get there. They arrive at the stable right in the nick of time and have a baby alone as outcasts with donkeys, camels, goats, sheep, all looking on. Right? That's basically the story of Christmas that we know it. That's been told over and over and over. However, there's the reality, and then there's Goggles. That's the story of Hollywood's Goggles story of Christmas. That's not real. That might be the version you know, but it's not. As Paul Harvey once said, now for the rest of the story. You ready? I can feel the excitement already. So Joseph and Mary went to Bethlehem because Joseph had royal blood from the house of David. Lineage, family history, the family tree. This was a big deal back then. Today, if you just know your grandparents and what they did, that's pretty impressive. If you know your great-grandparents, whoa, you're elite. Back then, you knew generation upon generation upon generation upon generation upon generation. They know their family history. Back then, they could trace their ancestry thousands of years, especially if you were the bloodline of David. That was a big deal. So Joseph walks into town and goes to the innkeeper in Luke chapter 2, verse number 7, uses the word katalama. You see that? He uses the word katalama. This is not the word used to describe a day's inn. This is not the word to describe a holiday inn. This is not the same word. It's not a commercial word. In the parable of the Good Samaritan in Luke chapter 10, we just read Luke chapter 2. In Luke chapter 10, the same writer, the same author, the physician, we hear about a Samaritan, the Good Samaritan, takes an injured man to an inn. Remember that story? Luke uses the word, you'll see it on the screen right here, pandachia. Pandachia. That's the word used. The first part of this word means all. The second part of this word literally means to receive. So this word, pandachia, literally means to receive all. To receive all. The word kataloma, it simply means what? A place to stay. Do you see the difference? In translation, it would be basically driving by a house and you see a sign that says room for rent. That's what they're talking about. Is that making sense? This is not a hotel. This is not the same thing. We with me? All right, so now the question on the table is this. What's the deal with this house? What's the deal with this inn? What was the foot plan, the blueprint, if you will, of this house? Well, I'm glad you asked. In Luke chapter 2, verse number 7, you read that there was no room for them in the inn. Look, I'll be honest with you. This story really bothered me for years and years and years and years and years. I hated this story. I didn't like the way it was taught. I was like, why in the world? Why in the world would an innkeeper, knowing that all these people are coming into town from the same lineage, Why would they take not only this people and just throw them out in the street? Why would they take this people and a pregnant woman and throw them out? It bothered me. I didn't like it. I don't know. This is royal blood here. You know, when you walk into town, you knock on that guy's door, it says room for rent. You walk on that door and say, look, I'm Joseph, son of Jacob. I wonder if he said before the fall of Jerusalem, when they were exiled, before the fall of Jerusalem, I'm from Josiah, Ammon, Manasseh, Hezekiah, the son of Ahaz, the son of Jotham, the son of Uzziah, the son of Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, the son of Asaph, and Abijah, Rehoboam, Solomon. Oh, and by the way, the son of David. I don't know what your resume says, but someone comes knocking on the door like that, you open the door for them. This is royal blood. Doesn't that bother anybody? You kicked them out? There's no room in here? Not to mention, there's a very pregnant girl. You see, most cultures, when you see a pregnant woman come onto the bus, the train, in the office, what do? You get up and you let her sit. Typically, you let a woman sit, but when a pregnant woman comes in, you let them sit. The other day, I was sitting there watching a volleyball tournament, and one of the coach's wives was very pregnant, like almost ready to pop. Very pregnant, and I see her sit down in a chair, and people were massaging her shoulders one after another. I was like, I want to be pregnant. Look, you take care of pregnant people, right? There's something special about that. It's unique. It's an honor. And then here we see this woman being thrown on the street. Doesn't that bother anybody? Man, it bothered me. There's no room in the inn. Are you serious? I just started reading this book. It's called Jesus Through Middle Eastern Eyes. It's by Kenneth Bailey. One of the first chapters actually talks about the story of Jesus' birth. And he gives a few floor plans. And I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you, it changed my whole outlook of the birth. The whole outlook of this story. Again, goggles. You ready? I want to show you a couple three floor plans right here. This is the first one. You got to put on the screen. The first one here is the side view. This is as if we're standing where you are and you're looking at the room. So the main room would be actually right here, very similar to this stage. You would come to the back end of the house, and there'll be a few steps, and down that steps is actually where all the manger, the stable would actually take place. Let me show you the next screen. Now, this would be a one-bedroom, so this is now looking from up top. So you see the stairs, the same principle? What would happen, they would go down the steps, and the stable would be attached to their house. And the mangers, the little places where the goats, sheep, cows, whatever would eat from, they would be on the stage, if you will. The animals would come up from the stable and eat here at night on inside of the house. Is that making sense? Let me show you one more. This is a second one. This would probably be very familiar to the innkeeper. So what they would have is like they would have a guest room. In Elijah's time, it actually called it the prophet's room, where a room would always be available to receive any guests. This is a typical, normal house structure foot plan of this time and even back then. So you see a second room, a guest room would be for all the inn. Does that make sense? And the same thing with the stable. Can you see that picture at all? So the inn part were spare rooms, the fold-out bed, if you will, bunk beds. They were all taken. But this innkeeper looks like, well, I have a stable. See, in our minds, a stable, a barn, is 600 feet away in a field way over there. Have you seen Jerusalem? There's none of that going on. What happens is they would take the animals, and during the day they would let them out in the house's courtyard, and then at nighttime they would bring it inside the house and keep them in the stable. So when the innkeeper would say, there's no room in my house of the extra room, it's already taken, he's not rejecting them. He's like, I'm going to do everything I can to help this pregnant woman out. Help this family out. They're from the tribe of David. of Judah. Now, I need to find them a place. Not only am I going to find them a place, I'm going to make sure it's the best of the best stable we've ever had. Is this making sense? Can you see it from a different point of view? Do you see a different goggle? The reality? So the style of home fits naturally in the arrival of Christ. In the Old Testament, you'll actually see the same setup in 1 Samuel chapter 28. It says Saul was guest in the house of a medium. Remember the story? A medium of Endor. When the king refused to eat, the medium then took a fattened calf that was in the house. You'll also see this in the story of Jephthah in Judges chapter 11. If you remember, this judge, he makes a vow to God on his way to battle, and he says, God, if I can have victory in this battle, I'm going to sacrifice the first thing that comes out of my house. Because every house had a stable with animals in it. And he's coming really early in the morning. The first thing comes out of my house. When my kids, my family, when they open that door, if it's the cow, if it's the sheep, if it's the goat, it's for you, God. And who walks out? To his horror, it was his daughter. This setup, this model, you'll see all throughout the Bible, that this is how it actually was. It wasn't a manger miles away, and they barely made it. Does that put a different light on this story at all? So Joseph knocks on the door, tells who he is, and how his lineage is from Bethlehem, that he's royal blood and a pregnant wife. Let me offer this. Did the innkeeper have compassion on them? I believe he celebrated their arrival and transformed that stable at the back of their house and made a very cozy place for Mary. They celebrated Christ's arrival. So that's the first arrival. The second arrival is actually our so what, now what. So the first arrival is the arrival of Christ's birth. The second arrival, also the so what, now what. The second arrival you'll see on the screen is the arrival for the heart. See, the Christmas spirit, love, family, being thankful, giving is better than receiving, helping others, the Christmas spirit, as it were. My question to all of us is simply this. Am I Hollywood? Am I seeing this through the goggles of Hollywood or Hallmark? Is my Christian walk of goggles? Do I actually see myself doing this that's amazing and awesome and I'm really serving God? Do I have the goggles on? Or am I seeing it from God's point of view? Bro, we got work to do. Are you following me? Do I have the Hollywood Christmas spirit? That I try to mimic the fruits of what God has had for us. The fruit of the Spirit. I can mimic it really well. But in reality, Jesus is not even a main character in my life. That you try to do the love, you try to do the passion, you try to be patient and kind and gentle and meekness. Give is better than receiving, the Christmas spirit, but we forget the Christ of Christmas. Is that my situation? Do I forget or have I forgotten the lead character? Is Jesus just a baby in a manger in a nativity scene once a year, or is he active in every part of my life? Have I accepted him? Has he arrived in my heart? Let me say it this way. Do I go out of my way and open my house up to not just the guest room, not just the living room where I want him to see, but I'm showing him my manger. I'm showing him my history on the internet. I'm showing him how I talk to people on social media. I'm opening every door, every room in my house, in my life. I'm opening every part of it and say, Jesus, you're in it. Or do I just show them the rooms I want him to see? Is Jesus the main character in my life? That's the question for us today. As we close this service, and ask yourself, is every room ready to receive Christ's arrival? So let me throw it at you. Let me throw it at all of us. Is there a room in our life? Look, you know the purpose of Christmas. Is there a room in our lives that we don't want God to see? Sorry, God, there's no more room in here. I got all the God I need. And Jesus says, what about that room? Are you willing to let him see that room? A simple question. If there's something in my life, if there's a room in my life that doesn't have Jesus in it, I won't let him in. But God, you're here, and we're waiting for your arrival. God, welcome in this place. If that's you, and you want to receive Christ, you want to receive his arrival, raise your hand. Let everybody in this room repeat after me. Dear Jesus, thank you for your arrival. We receive you. Lord, forgive me that not just every room, but there's some rooms that I won't let you in. Open the doors. Welcome. Lord, take a hold of our lives. Be number one in our lives. That you are the reason for the season. Not just for Christmas, but for every month of the year. We receive you. In Jesus' name, amen and amen.